Good morning. What a beautiful night last night. I slept so good. There's just something about the cold air that just makes you sleep so much more sound. It was a great night. Camp's abuzz this morning. Everybody's up and making breakfast, having coffee. I'm about 2 cups of coffee in. I was up about 5:30 this morning. I was up pretty early, but I was just awake and ready to enjoy this incredible view up here. And I thought I'd come up here and just walk around and check out this old mine. It's a lot of ruins, but it's interesting because, you know, this mine was from, I think, 1905 all the way to like 1984. And so there's old stuff and a little bit of modern stuff integrated into all this. So I just want to walk around and check it out. What a massive operation this must have been.
This is the Boreana mine. Deposits of tungsten were found here back in 1908, and by 1915, production had increased and eventually became the second largest producer of tungsten in the United States. The mine was in operation until 1980, and it was 1,100 feet deep and included 9 levels. This was a massive operation. Today, most of the mine openings have been closed off, and all that remains are crumbling buildings, a few mining structures that are still barely standing, and many tailing piles in the area. Now, as I was walking around and exploring and checking out many of the ruins in the area, I came across something that I did not expect to see up here.
So just walking around to the top of the mountain here, and there's this little spring coming out of the mountain here, and kind of a little pond here. It's got some pretty good size goldfish in there.
I can say with certainty I have never seen goldfish in any other place I've camped, and the fact that they have prospered here is pretty incredible when you think about how cold it must get in the mountains in the winter and the heat that must bear down on them in these Arizona summers. My understanding is goldfish are an invasive species, but I don't think they're doing any harm up here. Pretty interesting. Folks are starting to pack up, and we should be having our driver's meeting here shortly. But if you remember from part 1 of this trip, I asked some folks in our group to share their worst adventure stories. So let's hear a couple more before we head out this morning.
Our worst adventure was back in 2021, shortly after we had built our four-wheel camper flatbed build. And we were out exploring in Moab. One of the trails we were running was the Schaefer Trail, which if anyone's been out to that trail knows it's a very cliffy shelf road trail. If you're not fond of heights, one you probably won't like. And I got a little too close to the rocks and ripped the awning off of our brand new camper build that we hadn't even had 4 weeks yet.
All right, he's not giving it enough drama. So we're driving and it's brand new, so you know he's being cautious, and all of a sudden we hear this noise and he's like, what was that? And I look in the side mirror because I'm in the passenger seat. I'm like, oh, your awning is laying on the ground. And he's like, what? Yeah. Sorry.
So meanwhile traffic is stacking up, just upcoming traffic, there's downcoming traffic. You know that trail's not wide enough to pass on, and so we're scrambling to try to pick the awning up. I can't leave the trail trash out there. It's laying on the ground. We shove it in a closed camper and we continue down Schaefer Trail. We get down to the bottom. I open the camper up, and in the process of bouncing down the trail, not only had I ripped the awning off and done all the damage to the outside of the camper, it also then bounced around on the inside of the camper and ripped stuff apart and tore a bunch of stuff up. After the adventure, and we got back home, and I got with four-wheel camper, and I had done over $7,000 in damage to the camper. Not our best adventure, not my finest moment, but yeah. Why do we still do it after all that?
Because it's still fun.
It's still fun, yeah. I mean, I always like to say you can't ever have a good adventure without a little bit of adversity.
So let's see, my most challenging adventure. I'm going to say that I've had a lot of different adventures and they've all been pretty cool. I would say the most challenging one I've ever had was actually one of my very, very first. I was actually still in high school, and it was one of the first times I went camping with my buddies. And the car I was driving with at the time, without getting into a whole bunch of detail, it basically blew a head gasket. So we were camping up above Crown King, and I had to limp the thing all the way down to the I-17 on the Senator Highway, shutting it off, coasting down hills, turning it back on, because it kept overheating. So that was probably the most challenging one that I can think of offhand. But, we got through it, and obviously it didn't ruin me because I've still been doing this for, 25 years later. So, there's a lesson learned. And it was, take better care of your car. I love exploring. I love seeing what's around the next bend. I love getting off the beaten path. I mean, we're only, I'm going to guess right now, we're less than 15, 18 miles from the 93, which is the major highway that goes from Phoenix to Vegas. And those guys would never know that this beautiful place that we're in right now exists. And I love stuff like that, just getting off the beaten path and finding out, you know, what these mountains or what that valley and all that stuff looks like. That's what keeps me going. So, all right, so the plan for today, we are going to continue on into the Hualapais, and we are actually going to cross over to the other side. We are going to be visiting yet another mine site, but this one is really cool. It's got a couple of buildings that are, let's just say, really unique. So that right there at the mine is a pretty rough section. It's probably the roughest wheeling we're going to encounter on the trip. I think we'll be fine. Everybody's got lockers and rock sliders and all that stuff. I really don't anticipate having much issue at all. So we're going to check that out. But we do have a pretty long day today. So
I enjoy how cryptic Trent keeps these drivers' meetings. Just a little bit of information to build enough anticipation to keep everyone intrigued. I have to admit, though, where we are heading today, I've actually been to once before, and we're going to find ourselves working our vehicles pretty hard. But the reward will be worth it, and before the day is through, I believe everyone will have made some new everlasting memories.
We have been climbing and climbing in elevation, and boy, the views are just getting better and better on both sides of this ridge line. Now, I have been to the north side of the Hualapai Mountains before. I came here actually twice, and the very first time that we came here, Marco's Jeep Wrangler 392 was only a week old, and we went to this trail, which we are going to today, and there is a very cool building, an old mine there, and I'll wait until we get there to share that with you, but it's definitely worth it. But the trail ended up being a lot more rugged and treacherous than we anticipated, so I kind of know what we're in for. And the interesting thing was, it was Josh, Marco, and I, and we were just out for fun that day. We weren't filming, so this is the first time that I'm actually going to get to share this trail and the mine and the building with you guys. So it's gonna be a good day. You guys are gonna enjoy this one.
The Hualapai mountain range has many trails from easy to difficult that wind and twist their way along the ridgelines and dive deep into the valleys. There's a dramatic range of plant life here depending on the elevation, the slope direction, and the microclimate, so there's something new to see around just about every corner. The wildlife in this area includes black bear, elk, mule deer, javelin, and mountain lions. It's likely you'll never see a mountain lion, but they'll probably see you. This is the ideal place to escape the heat of the Arizona summer and do some exploring over a few days. In fact, I've already marked a handful of nice primitive campsites this morning because this is a place I'll be coming back to.
All right, it's just after 10:30, and we've been on this trail for a while. It just kind of winds up along the ridge of the mountains, and we've climbed in elevation quite a bit. We're about 6,900 feet. Lots of pine trees up here now, but we are getting ready to turn off onto Moss Wash Trail, and things are going to get fun. Things are going to get exciting because this is a difficult rated trail, but working through it is going to it's going to pay huge dividends when I show you guys what we're going to see down there. It's going to be pretty cool. now. There's some good ruts, a few rocks, some tight turns, but there's more to come. As we get closer to this mining area, things get really technical. This is kind of just a little bit of a break-in, but you know, I always have second-guessed my decision on putting 35s on this thing, but when it performs on stuff like this and it really doesn't flinch, I know I made the right decision. But things are going to get a little more technical here soon, so we'll see. We'll see if these 35s still hold up. I think they do. All right, guys, that was a fun section of trail getting here. You know what? I actually remember it being a little harder, but Marco reminded me that when we came through here, we had the trailers and we were going up it. I think down is a little easier, but we made it to the Gold King Mansion, which has a really cool story behind it. This place is super unique. This would be a really interesting place to camp, like on Halloween night or something like that. Let me show you around, and then we'll tell you the whole story about this place.
This is the Gold King Mansion, and it was built in the late 1920s by the Gold King Corporation, which used this once ornate building to entertain wealthy investors. The gold mine never reached production levels that the Gold King Corporation had hoped for, and ultimately the stock market crash in 1929 and the subsequent depression brought an end to the mining and the mansion as a residence. The mansion's roof and walls were made of poured concrete, and you can see it appears that there was actually electricity in the mansion from evidence of these electrical outlets. You can also still see some of the ornate crown molding along the ceilings. I can only imagine the challenges it must have been to get the equipment and supplies up here to build this, because as you will soon see, the trail leading out isn't any easier than the trail we just came in on. The mansion is a perfect place for us to take a break and have lunch, but let's hear a couple more worst overland adventure stories.
The worst trip for me was the one that we made up with our friend Jim to Death Valley. I was in my JK, and he started giving me a bunch of engine codes. It ended up to be sensors and sensor wiring and all that. I was really worried about that because I was pulling the trailer. We were all the way there, far from home, and I didn't know if I was going to make it home. But, you know, I got on the freeway in limp mode. That was frustrating because there were trucks behind me. My buddies were just waiting for me. But I got home, fixed the thing, and here we are back to do the things that we love. Because once you go out there and you see places that you've never seen before, then you are thankful to have a vehicle like a Jeep or any off-road vehicle, even though it gives you those problems.
One of my worst adventures was a Paiute draw with a group of friends, probably about 6 of us. We had just pulled out a friend's Jeep. We had to use a couple of hydraulic jacks to lift the differential up and get it over some rocks. And so we had just finished that, almost up to the waterfall, and wasn't paying attention, and I was looking at the sights. And then within about 2 minutes of that, I had ran the front of this Cherokee right up over a ski jump, and so that the front differential went up it and down, and I didn't know what happened, and so I ended up trying to put it in reverse and it wouldn't come out. So got outside and looked at it, and it was perfectly hung up to where I could have changed a tire. So we got all the tools back out that we had just stowed away, and had to use both jacks again, jack up the differential, and then the very vehicle we recovered had to pull me off. So everybody was laughing. I enjoyed it because that night around the fire, we were all laughing about it, and it just kind of washed away the day, and we all had fun, and it was just part of the experience when you run into altercations like that.
All right, my worst adventure ever was early in our Jeep Overland days. My husband and I had built a Overland LJ, and we were headed out to meet a new group that we barely knew, packed everything up, drove 6 hours, get into this canyon. It's dark. We got one friend behind us following us, and we finally find the group that we're supposed to be meeting, and they're up camped on this old mine, and they're all the tents, everything's out. We're like, oh, we're so excited, and they're flashlights, and they're pointing, and they're like, oh, go up this. So we're like, okay, well that looks kind of complicated, and it's all bumpy and rocky, and so we're bumping up there, and it's boom, Jeep shuts off. We snapped our fuel line. We go bumping back down. Everyone's up there. They come running down. They're like, oh, this sucks. Oh, man. So we have to camp down below. All these people that we don't barely know are up there. In the morning, we're going, what are we going to do? Like, we're down this canyon, tiny town, far away. And they're all like, well, we got this run planned. So they just take off, and they're like, I don't know. We got one friend that's like, I'll stay behind and help you. So we just patch it up, book it out as fast as we can, run out of fuel, like a good couple, like 2 miles. We still got 20 miles to go. We end up having to leave the Jeep, and it's this back and forth where we're like, what do we do? How do we get out here? How do we get home? We're able to get parts, drop the tank, fix it all on the trail in the heat, like in this weird place that we don't even know. And then it's like 4 o'clock. We have an idea of where the other group is. And we look at our friend and we're like, do we do it? Should we meet them or do we go home? And he's like, let's do it. So the Jeep's running, and we basically have to get out, go all the way around a good 2 or 3 hours. And they didn't give us coordinates. They're just like, we're gonna be off this road about 20 miles. We think we're gonna be over here. So in the dark, we're going along, and it's like, I don't know, are we just gonna have to camp here? We got 10 more minutes if we don't find them. Next thing you know, we pop over, there's their tents, and you just hear, ah, everyone's cheering. We roll in, and they're like, how did you do this? Like, how are you here? Also, how did you find us? Why we still do it is that feeling of like, we did it, we fixed it, and it's persevering, and then showing up and having that camaraderie with everyone else.
Oh yeah, this trail has plenty of obstacles to keep you engaged. Just takes a little bit of patience and a little tire placement. You can work your way through here. I think for me, my Gladiator on 35s, this is probably the upper limit of capabilities that I really want to push this vehicle to. I really don't anticipate taking this Jeep on harder trails than this, so this has been a great test today, and I'm very, very happy with how it's performed. Everyone else carefully and slowly worked their way through, but the Tacoma did get a little high-centered, so the team shifted into recovery mode, and within minutes, they were back up and running again. Got a few hundred more yards of moss wash left, and then we're hitting pavement, and we're gonna go get some fuel and start looking for camp this evening. It's already it's around 3 o'clock, so I think by the time we get fuel and get back on the dirt and look for camp, it's gonna be ready for some chow time. So hopefully we may get to camp early tonight. But man, what do you guys think of that trail? I really enjoyed that trail. I mean, it's just got some fun technical sections, some scenery, and of course the mansion just is the highlight. So it's a great trail. If you're out here in Arizona, I highly recommend that one. So after about an hour on the freeway, we stopped in I don't even know if you would call it a town. We stopped at a gas station in a place called Solomon, I think is how you pronounce it, Solomon. We all filled up, grabbed a couple little supplies, and then right there, we hit the dirt. And now we are heading deep into this beautiful area that's got some kind of rolling hills and mountains off the background, and we didn't even air down. We're just beelining for camp right now, which I think we're all okay with. Get to camp a little early and just kind of unwind and relax and kind of reminisce about our day. That was an exciting day. I think we all have some pretty good stories to tell.
All right, so we're at this little sign-in station here. Now this is one of those checkerboard areas that's a combination of Prescott National Forest and a private ranch. So there's alternating sections of private ranch land and public land. And so basically the U.S. Forest Service has made an agreement with the Hualapai Ranch that the Hualapai Ranch allows access on any of the existing roads, but they do like to keep track of who's passing through, especially in regards to hunters and wildlife. There's actually a thing right on the sheet about you have to report any wildlife that you've bagged, of course, with proper permits and all that stuff. So we're just camping, so we're just going to sign in and respect the agreement and stay on the existing roads. So simple as that.
All right, we made it to camp, and this is a nice wide open spot, nice and flat, plenty of room for everybody tonight. And I got some beautiful views off in the distance of the mountains, nice flat area here with a fire ring. And then the sun, we might get a pretty nice sunset tonight. It looks like it's gonna be setting behind those mountains here, but I'm gonna get set up and tell some good stories today, I think.
Absolutely incredible sunset. I don't recall the last time I've seen one so rich in color. I think we all just stared in it in a peaceful quiet for quite some time. Truly, truly breathtaking. Jesse and the guys got the fire going, and everyone began to cook up dinner. The air was filled with savory smells, and I think it's safe to say everyone this evening was very content. I cooked up a simple dinner, just sauteed up some mushrooms and cooked up a delicious ribeye. What more could a guy ask for?
All right, steak's done, medium. Mushrooms are sauteed. Smells pretty good. Just gonna take a quick taste test here. Mushroom, steak. Yep. Perfectly tender, perfectly juicy. I'm gonna go join the guys over by the fire. Good morning, guys. It was a great night here at camp. A little chilly this morning, but boy, the sun has come up and just warmed everything up. And that sunrise this morning, you gotta love Arizona sunrises and sunsets. Okay, so it's been great to hear everybody's stories about, their worst adventures and why they still do this. But I said at the beginning of the video I would share my story with you, and it all goes all the way back to the very first time that my son Jordan and I went camping in the silver Jeep, our JK, for the very first time. And we were out in the desert, we had our backpacking gear, we had just the basics. We found a pretty nice campsite, we set up, and the wind started getting stronger and stronger, and it started to get really, really bad. And I had an old Coleman stove that I had grabbed, and I didn't even have a table. We were cooking burgers on the ground, and I couldn't keep the flame lit. There was dirt blowing all over the burgers, so we weren't gonna be able to eat dinner, and the wind just kept getting worse and worse, and it was blowing dust in our faces, and it got so bad that it flattened the little ground tent that we had because the poles just couldn't stand up to the wind. That's how bad it was. And so we didn't pack up, we threw all the gear in the Jeep and drove home, and I think we got home at around 11:30 that night, and it was pretty rough. I remember being pretty exhausted when that was all said and done. But the next morning, Jordan and I were talking, and we were starting to laugh about it, and now it's just a great story that we have. And ever since then, it's just been, yeah, we're gonna have some challenges out here, whether it's weather, whether it's mechanical, whatever it is, it's part of the adventure, and you just gotta persevere through it, because being out here is therapeutic for you. Disconnecting, enjoying nature, there's nothing better than this. And so yes, There's going to be some challenges along the way, but some of those challenges make for the best stories.
We had a nice, slow, and relaxing morning, but Trent finally brought us together for a quick driver's meeting to share with us just a hint of what to expect today. I don't think any of us were looking forward to this adventure coming to an end today, but we were eager to get out and do some more exploring, and the dogs were anxious to get out on the dirt. So it was finally time to put down some miles and make our way farther north. Because we will be crossing through many different types of land areas today, we'll be opening and closing many gates. But you don't see many gates running across a cattle guard. It looks as though the guard has just been filled with dirt, and maybe this was the easiest way, was just to add a gate. That would be my guess anyway. It was a little strange.
Left off the road, and it looks like there is another gate right here. Alright, Jesse and Zach, you know the drill. Copy that.
Crazy what a little elevation will do. We've climbed up pretty good. I don't know, we're probably a little over 6,000 feet in elevation, and there's juniper trees and pine trees just all over the place. And up till now, the trail has been pretty easy and wide open, but now it's you can see getting a little more rugged, maybe a little more technical. Maybe we'll get into it a little bit, but honestly, it's been just kind of a nice, peaceful morning. Kind of had the radio off, just kind of clearing my head and just enjoying the drive and the scenery. It's been a great morning so far. Love Arizona. Have I mentioned that before? Probably 1,000 times.
The air up here is cool, fresh, and just filled with the smell of pine. And there's still an abundance of water up here from the recent rain. So a few folks took advantage of doing a little freshwater wash down to rinse off the several days of dust they've accumulated. We soon found a nice shaded spot just off the trail and enjoyed some lunch and some good conversation. We'll say this is a great group of people, and I have thoroughly enjoyed spending time with all of them. They just have the right mindset when it comes to persevering through challenges and having a great attitude. I'd wheel with these folks any day.